Hello, welcome to the Bonsai channel, brought to you by Dallas Bonsai Gardens. Let's take a few minutes today to talk about the Shimpaku Juniper. Shimpaku Junipers are by far the first choice for most people who'd like to use junipers for their bonsai. There's quite a bit of difference between the procumbens juniper and the Shimpaku. The main thing is their foliage doesn't brown out as much as the procumbens juniper when doing your pinching. Pinching on these type of trees is done just like this here. Really easy. Take the end and just twist it off. Many people take it and just pull it off. Or you could also use your scissors to get down inside, as with the procumbens, and nip off the branch you don't want, or the piece of foliage you don't want. That's actually the best way to do it because you don't have to worry about browning out. Of course, large specimens of Shimpaku junipers usually have massive trunks to work with. A lot of good branching and a lot of gin to work with. This tree, of course, isn't that type, but it still has a real good appearance to it because of all the branch structure. Another big difference between the Shimpaku and the procumbens juniper is your fertilization program. Again, the procumbens junipers almost need an acid type fertilizer to keep them looking good. Just the opposite is true with the Shimpaku. If you look up the history of the Shimpaku comes from a limestone based soil. So never use an acid type fertilizer on your Shimpaku. But it will also need a fertilizer that has trace minerals, and you'll also need to use chelated iron to keep it looking just as green as this one is. If you can notice, there's no yellowing at all in this. And I would advise you to use your fertilization and iron as a routine maintenance for your trees so you don't get to the point where they are starting to yellow out. The Shimpaku, the branch structure is very, very important. So with that in mind, wiring on these Shimpakus is a necessity. If you can notice how thick the foliage is on these trees, that it's necessary to do something to help these branches from sagging down. So wiring is an absolute must. Now that we've zoomed in, maybe you can notice some of the wiring that's been done on this tree to keep the branches just where they need to be. Believe it or not, this tree took 10 hours of steady, straight wiring in order to get it to where it needed to be. Be sure to look at the before photos on the links to see just what this tree looked like before it was styled the way it is. So in order to make this tree look somewhat presentable, make it look more like a tree rather than a shrub, you're going to need to work your branch structures into little pads. And cleaning your branches up with all this foliage is going to be somewhat of a task. Something I wouldn't try to do in one day, that's for sure, because you've got so much here that's going to need to be cleaned up. And the way you'll do that is by getting inside with your pine bud nippers. Now cleanup on the inside will consist of taking off little pieces that don't need to be there by using your pine bud scissors. Little pieces such as this here, green stuff growing on the inside, even this little dead branch can come off. But the main thing is to get all this green stuff off on the inside. And the reason you want to do this is to give a clear picture of what kind of branch structure you have. Now here's another area that needs to come off. Notice this dead branch. Got a wire on it. We're just going to go ahead and just nip that off right here at the base. Just like so. Because there's no need for any dead branches. And then of course later I'll come back and take that wire off. The Shimpakus, like with most other junipers, need to have their foliage on the bottom. Anything that's hanging down needs to come off. And what you'll do is you'll pinch it off just like such. And what this does is liven the tree up. It makes the tree look more vital, like it's got life to it. Whenever you have pieces that are hanging down, the tree has a tendency to have somewhat of a shabby look to it. This really cleans it up and really gives it a real nice finish. Of course, it's going to take time because there's a lot of foliage on your Shimpakus. But it's something that's going to need to be done throughout the whole tree. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to find a real nice Shimpaku to work with, to add to your collection, I hope you'll take the time to work it the way it needs to be worked. Clean it out, give it that real airy look so it doesn't look like a shrub. And most important, give it the right type of fertilizer to keep it looking just as nice and green as you know it should be. Thanks for stopping by.